This is Lee with A2 Gaming 12 on YouTube channel Sons of Liberty 75, and I am back with a video over the Great Redoubt, a game of the Battle of Borodino, 1812. This is the Yaquinto Publications Incorporated game that came out in 1979. And the credits here: Design and Development, S. Taylor Jr., Production Coordinator, J. Stephen Peak, Box Art from the Borodino Cyclorama. You got design and typesetting, printing, the Yaquinto Printing Company, playtesters, so forth. So there we go. And I'll talk about the comparisons between this game and the YPI. If I pull back some more, there we go. This is the map. We've only got one map sheet. It's kind of a card, thick, not too thick, but a cardstock type, almost like a poster board material. And my French units back here in the back got all kind of jumbled up. The hexes could have been bigger, seeing how that you can put up to 2 of the rectangle counters in a hex at a time, or you can put 4 of the small square counters in a hex at a time. Now the scale, I think I've mentioned this, the hex is 400 yards across, so it's not meters but yards. And each combat unit represents one actual infantry regiment, brigade, or division, cavalry brigade or division, or massed artillery formation. So each strength factor represents approximately 250 actual men, or 3 to 8 actual guns. And then each turn equals 30 minutes. And I'm going to use most of the optional or advanced rules. One thing is the counters don't all have to face the same hex. There's a lot of things that are going to be different in this game than in a lot of other games that you might play. It's got some unique elements, mechanics, I guess. So, yeah, optional rules. So if we take a look at the optional rules, we've got shifting initiative, which means you're going to roll to determine who has initiative instead of just the French player, then the Russian, then the French, Russian, so forth. So I'm going to use that. That's going to be a little bit different than what's going on with the YPI, but that's okay. And then we've got movement. They can do about face. We got road column. We're going to use that. We've got the special leader movement. So leaders normally have a movement of 12 movement points, but Napoleon was lethargic, and of course Kutuzov was aged and was not very active. So both of those units can only move 4. So Napoleon Kutuzov leaders may not be used as commanding leader units for combat units of announcing or making charges. And then also with the charge and combat options, if I'm going to use that's cohesion hits. So there's a C that's found on the combat results table, and so what that does is it lowers the morale. So with each cohesion hit, it's going to subtract 1 from the morale. So this unit here has 2 cohesion hits, so this 8, okay, is going to be a 6 instead of being an 8 because of cohesion hits. And we're going to use the optional leader casualties. We're going to use that. And let's see here. We're going to have, we're going to have reaction charges in this game. But the only ones that can do that are leaders that are marked with an R on the back of their counter. And then the reaction unit has to be led by a leader, okay? And the leader has to be flipped over to its R side. And that unit and leader cannot have moved during their movement phase. So basically, they're set aside, ready to react to the enemy, which I think is that's a really good rule. You know, that you had cavalry that you set aside not just as reserves, but you had them set aside prepared to react. So, and we're going to get into a lot of the other type of rules. We've got cavalry recall. We're going to use that. We're going to use automatic retirement. So cavalry units in melee with an infantry unit or units in a square formation must automatically make a retirement movement, which is going to be, they're going to be routed. Okay, they're going to route move. And let's see, breakthrough charges, we're going to use that. So if they charge a unit and that unit routes, then they'll move into the hex that the routed unit was in, and then if they still have movement, they can then move and attack another target. So, and they can keep doing that until they run out of movement. So the other thing is successive charges. So if they charge one turn, they can't charge the next turn, which that's going to be similar to the La Bataille later rules of where you have a tired, exhausted cavalry. You can, of course, we'll have order mix, where you can have one unit in line, another in column, and then you can announce a charge there where you're going to have your column charge through the line to attack an enemy. And I guess we'll use this optional artillery route capture of guns. And so unlimbered artillery cannot route away. They would route, but not away. And if an enemy unit moves in there, they capture them. And then you're going to roll a die to determine how long that artillery unit will be there, so that it could be recaptured. So, what else? Oh, battle fatigue. So, on the 10th and 20th turn, any unit that has a cohesion hit on the strength and morale record sheets next to it are going to suffer a hit. And this cohesion hit has the same effects as normal cohesion hits. So it's going to lower their morale, basically. So they're not taking a strength hit, but a cohesion hit. And then morale, so basically, if the French victory points exceeds the Russian victory points by 60 or more, then the morale for all units for the Russians is -1. And then, with the French, if the Russian victory point exceeds the French by 30 points or more, then they have a -1 to all units. I'm not going to do this second morale check. That's where you roll again to find out if a unit routes. Command and control, of course, we're going to use that. That's what it has to do with obedience. So units have to stay within their command range. If they get outside of that, they've got to roll for obedience. Same thing with leaders. So that you have a little bit of limit on the control of your units. And that's what all that explains. And then the rest of that's multiplayer. We're not doing that. So I'm not going to go into all the rules specifically, but I'll talk about them as we go along. And so we're going to get started here. And I believe the French have the first, they have the activation. Let's see where it talks about setup. Well, there it is. All right. So the French will go first. I don't see anywhere where it says who basically goes first. So we're going to have the French go first. They're the ones attacking. And we've got the entire map, or the entire battlefield, on this one map. Unlike the La Bataille, where we have actually 4 maps, and I'm only using 2. And I'm thinking about, I have space, another table. And I'm thinking about setting that up because Eugene did attack Borodino, captured it, and then came across the river to attack the Great Redoubt. But, of course, then he had to go back across because of Russian counterattack toward the French left. So that's going to force the Russians, if Eugene, who's here, if he comes across, and of course there is on this map, there's not anyone in Borodino. So crossing, he can, of course, cross here. That's a ford. And then, of course, there's the bridge here that he could come across. And so that's what we have. And, of course, the Russians have these forces down here. Uvarov is here. And, of course, you got Platov over here with the Cossacks. And Bagelvot here with Württemberg. And Osufov. They could all make a push, but of course they're gonna have to cross here. Crossing this river will not be easy. And I'm going to have to look to see in this game whether or not that's even allowed. So what we have here is we've got these charts, strength and morale record sheet that you use instead of using hit markers. And I really like the not using the hit markers. It keeps the clutter down. And also it keeps the, if something happens, get moved or whatever, then you're not wondering how many hits does that unit have. You can just look at the sheet. And, I wish that was so with La Bataille. I guess I could make my own. And there's all the abbreviations you need. And on the opposite side is the French. And they've got their abbreviations on the bottom. And as you can see, there is a lot of units here. This is a very I guess it's counter heavy. In other words, there's a lot of counters and units. So it's kind of nice to have this. But the other thing that's nice is you've got as the unit loses strength, the morale goes down. And I like that. I think that morale should go down as you lose troops. A unit that has half their forces gone are going to react a little bit different. They can't, it's just mentally, there's just that effect on the soldier that, hey, we've lost half our guys. So that's something that's different. But of course you got the record chart here is different from La Bataille, but also that the morale goes down. La Bataille, the morale doesn't change. No matter how many losses you take, the morale doesn't change on each counter. And, I like the fact that it does. The other thing that I like is that fatigue rule. I think there's not very many games that have included fatigue. And maybe they include it in the morale, but if the morale doesn't go down, there's no fatigue. And a unit that is constantly attacking or being attacked is going to wear down. And if you don't pull them out and let them have a breather, then they're going to have a higher chance of routing. And so that's what this fatigue rule is. It has to do with cohesion hits, not casualties, but cohesion, which is a result of combat. So we've got that. And then we've got our charts. I'm going to find the charts. Okay, so here's the charts. You got the combat results chart, firing modifiers, melee modifiers. It talks about what's what there, formation unit notes, and then on the back side we've got movement cost, the victory points right there, which is great, morale modifiers, the leader and elimination, route notes. Okay. A unit will lose one strength factor when it routes, and the controlling player moves a unit. Number of hexes equal to its movement factor. So that right there covers the charts. And I don't know, I guess I only have one in here. Normally, a lot of times you get two, but maybe I do. Oh, no, I do have another one. Okay, so there is two in here. Okay. And in the design notes, the fact that they also were designing and creating the Thin Red Line, which was their Waterloo game, at the same time. So they were making both of these games at the same time. So, and I actually have that, there it is. I actually have the Thin Red Line. So let me swing the camera over here so we can see the Thin Red Line. And when I open it up, you're going to see a very similar map. The maps look the same in the way that they're made, designed. Okay. And also, it's just one map. You know, it's got 4 pieces, parts to it, but there it is. Right there. That's it. And so you have, let's see here. Okay, you have the, of course, the British are going to be on this side. La Haye Saint, Hougoumont over here, and the French are down here at the bottom of the map. Planceno, but so that's the Thin Red Line map. You've got the same or similar charts, but you've got two. And of course, the rules are going to be pretty much the same. They've got the chart, the casualty charts here, and then, of course, look at the units. They look similar. So I think I actually had this on eBay to sell it. I've never played it, but I decided I wanted to play the Borodino, so I pulled it out. And I tried to go through here and kind of organize this stuff. This is going to be a game that you're going to have to store laying flat. You standing up on the side is not, that's going to send counters everywhere. So either that or you're going to have to take the tray out and, use something else to store the counters, which you could do. But that's the Thin Red Line. So both of those were being produced, designed at the same time. And that was to save, I guess, on production cost, and also in designing. If you're designing like 2 games, you are, as you're play testing and you're doing so forth and so on, you can find maybe issues that you didn't see in one game that you see in the other game. But, you know, when you go to the printer and all of that, it's probably cheaper doing it that way, because they're setting it up for, you know, specific colors and things like that. So there we go. So if that's something that you're looking for, you might just go to eBay and type in thin red line, and you can find it there. I believe it's still on there. I guess I could look. All right, so let's get started. We'll go over the all of the specific rules for the game and things of that nature, mechanics, all of that as we go along. We're not going to be too concerned about all of the different rules just yet. We'll wait until we actually are using those rules to explain them. So, all right, let's get started. So the French get the first movement. So, following the sequence of play, which happens to be on the back. Okay. So here it says the initiative phase. The die rolls determine which side will take their portion of the turn first. Initiative units may be used to modify the die rolls. High roll must go first. But the French, here it is, the sequence of play shows you who goes first. The French portion of the turn, the French player is now the phasing player. Okay, we will use the initiative on turn 2 and on. So we have the charge phase. This is where the phasing player will do all their charges and announce the charge step, check charge unit step, morale, defending morale, and the movement, and so forth. Okay, so the actual fighting doesn't take place until the melee step. So, and I don't have any units that are going to charge right away. So let me move this in here, and we grab our things here. And I've got to fix some things over here because all this got jumbled up, and try to figure out what the heck happened. So let me take a little break here. All right, I reorganized those units that got moved around. So a unit's facing is very important. And unlike a lot of games, a unit's zone of control is more than one hex. Okay, in this game, what you have is facing a unit must face a hex side. Can't face a hex vertex. Okay. Now, you can have units facing separate directions in a hex because the hexes are 400 yards across. So they don't all have to face the same way. So we've got some different examples here. These are the large rectangle counters, and these would be the small square counters. And so here you've got four small square counters facing different directions. Okay, same thing here. Okay, now, when you're dealing with the zone of control, the only hex that the unit controls is the front hex that it's pointing at. Now, when it fires, that's where it has to fire. Now, artillery, they have a different fire arc. Now, a unit that's in square, okay, has 6 zones of control because they have all around facing. So that's something that's different in this game. To charge, the cavalry's got to charge through that front hex in a straight line. So cavalry can't charge diagonally. They've got to charge straight. So you've got to line up your cavalry. Now, prior to charging, you can turn and change your facing. So, but you have to charge in a straight line. It can't be, you can't charge, at a vertex. So that's something that's a little bit different in this game. So this will show you the front, okay, the flank, and the rear. So the rear is the hex directly behind. Flank are the 2 on the side. And the front are actually these 3 front hexes here. But when it comes to firing, you've got to fire only through this front hex for infantry. Okay. And when we go to, let's see if we can find the artillery. And when you move, the unit must move into the hex it faces. So you can't move to the left or the right without changing your facing. And here it is, artillery. So here's the artillery fire field. So just like that, okay. And so that's how it branches out. So these 2 hexes would be in the field of fire, okay, and then it just continues to go out. So it's, and they only have a range of 3 hexes. So it's 1 adjacent, 2, and then 3. That's because this is 400 yards. So you're looking at 3 hexes away. That's 1,200 yards, right? No, let's see. Yeah, 1,200 yards. So, and we're talking about all of the other little bits and pieces as we go along. So, now for a unit to be able to move at full movement points, they must be stacked with a leader. If there's no leader, then they can only move half of their movement points. That's something else that's a little bit different. And that has to do with command and control and what's going on. So we have to decide as the French player, what's our plan here of attack? Instead of just jumping in here, we've got to think about some things. One thing is we look across the Kalatasha River, we see that there's forces over here to the French left. So these units here cannot just come in across the river here and join in this fight here. They're going to open up the flank to attack. So even though historically, Eugene captured Borodino and came across the river to attack the Great Redoubt. He had to return because the threat of the Russians, okay, attacking the left. So I think I have to maintain this force here on the French left to keep the Russians from enveloping and then eventually being able to attack us in the flank. So, and the thing is, Davout's forces are split. So we've got, where is Davout at? Yeah, he's way over here. Okay. Well, he's got Moran and Gerard over here in this area. And so they're going to have to be relying on command obedience. I'll have to roll to see whether or not they are going to follow orders. Okay, so if we look at their counter, okay, what we have is we've got a 5 here. Now this 5 on the bottom right, okay, is the obedience. So we roll 1 die, and if it's a 5 or less, then they're going to do as I wish. If not, they're just going to sit right where they're at and not move. So I'll have to do that for both of these leaders, generals. So let's see here. I had him there, and Gerard really needs to be here. Rest of these, what is this here? 111. I guess I can. Well, I need to leave him there. So let's take a closer look here what we got. So here's the Great Redoubt. Here's the flèches over here. And the Great Redoubt was also called the Revsky Redoubt because of the leader there that was commanding the 7th Corps. So we don't have much room over here to maneuver. This must be, let's see, somewhere here. Yeah, Utitsa, right here. Utitz is how it's written here on this map. So Utitz is something that we do want to capture. If we look at the, let's see, I got to find the. No, it's on my chart. Okay, so victory conditions. We look at the victory conditions. You've got the Great Redoubt, the flèches, Borodino village, and units exiting different hexes. So for the French, if they can exit 1514, 2117, and or 2717. So, all right, and if we look, if I pull back, okay, the roads that we're looking at here, let's see if I can reach this. There, here, and here. Those are 3 hexes that if French units are able to exit there, then for, let's see, where's the, oh, here it is. 2 victory points per strength point. Okay, for exiting those hexes. And you want to try to keep the French, the guard, from any combat, because that's going to give 10 points. And the Russians, units control hexes 1601, 1801, and or 2101. So if we for the Russians, we're looking at this hex, okay, and it'd be this hex, and the other one is, what I say, 14 or 1601. So 16, and that's going to be this hex back there. So let's move a little closer. So this hex, and this hex. And they get 5 points per turn for having control of those. The Great Redoubt is worth 15. Okay. Flèches are worth 5. Borodino Village is worth 5. And then we also get, for eliminating units, for each enemy unit, 1 victory point per strength point, or value, however they want to call it. So, leaders and so forth. So that's what we've got. So we're looking at Utitsa, or Utits, isn't even given any points. But in order to get the flèches, you want to be able to attack them from the flank. Same thing with the Great Redoubt. So if we can clear this here out and hold back the center, I think we're going to be better off. So the French are going to attack the Russian left and hold off in the center to start with. So the thing is, the only way that artillery can go through a forest hex is in road column. So they're prohibited from going into a forest hex. So we got that road, but I really need to get some infantry up there to attack. So let's see. Where's the ridge? So we're talking about a high hill. We're not really, that's not really what we've got. That's a trench. slope. Slope hex. Slope hex. I don't know if there's a slope hex on here. Okay. Forest hex, village hex, cross creek hexide, cross river hexide, cross trench hexide. So there's no slope. I think they forgot to put the slope in here. Yeah. Do they have the heel in here? They don't have the heel either. So the high heel, I wonder if they just forgot to put those in. Because they're not listed on the they're in the melee modifiers, but they're not listed. Maybe they weren't too much of a factor, but they just don't have them on there. Trench hexide, creek hexide. Maybe I just treat them as a creek hexide. But I guess that only applies if there's a creek there. But even a heel, the only thing it affects is going to be melee. So I guess I'm not going to worry about it. Wonder why they even put them on. Put them on the map. Let's see what we got over here in the, let's see, where's the, here it is. Okay, so the terrain effects, wolf pit, Fletcher's redoubt, hill, up and down. Yeah. Are they similar to the river? No. But a stream, let's see what the stream hexide is. Yeah, they're very similar to the stream. So I'll just use the stream hexide for these little slopes. So that'll solve that. So we want to move in infantry first before we do much else. So we've got this is, I think, Campania. Let's see. He is part of, I think, yes, he's part of 5th. So, no, he's not. Campans. He's part of GDW. What's he doing way over there? I got him. I think I got him. Oh, no. That's because GDW's right there. Okay, so GDW is going to move his forces up. And so going over that slope, that's going to be, okay, +1. Okay. plus 1. Now, they don't have a leader. So they, well, yeah, they did have a leader, this one. Okay, so they, no, that's right, you saw right here. So up this slope, that's going to be 1, okay? So they move into here, that's 2, okay? Again, upslope 3, 4. That's as far as they can go. Okay. Next, these guys don't have a leader with them, so they can only go 2. So up the slope into here. And we're moving Davu's forces. So Davu this. There's Davu. Okay. So this saw is with this unit. He's going to move on up to here. This unit's going to move to here. That's 1. And then they're going to stay right there. So here, they don't have a leader. Okay, so for artillery, Creekside is going to be plus 2. Oh, Limbert, okay, is plus 3. So all they can do is move to here, right there. And this unit will stop with them. Well, no, I tell you what, let's see, the Woods, though, is plus 2. No, it's just Woods hex is, inner force hex is plus 1. Okay, a forward movement cost 1 in column. So, yeah. So to move into the woods would cost 1 more. So this unit could move. It went 1, 2, and then 3, 4. So that's where it goes. This can't go into there. It's going to have to go this way and up this road. So here, this is more of Davu's. This is Freon. So they're going to go 1, okay, and they don't want to go into those fletches, so they're going to hold off right there. This artillery, 1, 2, 3, not doing much there. And then Davu back here with these units, they're going to move 1, and then 2, and this unit here is going to move over here with that guy. All right, so now shouldn't have had these guys limbered. All right, so this cavalry, okay, cross a creek, that's cost plus 2. They're going down a slope. That would be, should be at least plus 1 down a slope or up a slope. Maybe down a slope's nothing. So 1, what did I say, plus 2, 3, 4, 5. Got a movement of 6. So they're going to have to stop right there. And then this artillery is going to have to cost 2 to flip over. Oh, that leader had, oh, no, I had a leader with him. So 1, 2, 3, 4, what do they got? I got a 6, 3, 4, or 3, I guess. Won't count anything to go down a slope, I guess. And then to join, so 3, so that would be plus 3. I couldn't go any further. I can't use these. These are too hard to control for placing on top of units. I've kind of moved my units around here. This is the guard. I don't want to really move the guard. And then nay, I'm going to move nay up. So let's see, I had the VU here. 1, 2, 3, yeah. So he has a range of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not his. So these guys over here are going to have to roll. And I'll get to that. Well, I'll go ahead and do that since I'm doing DeVues anyways. So this is over closer to the Great Redoubt. We've got, I have to get closer. Okay. So we have Moran, and he has a 5. So we roll a die. Let me get it. What I need a blue one and a green one. Over here. That's the one I'm looking for. Go use that one. Okay. So I've got to roll 5 or less. I rolled a 3. So we can move Moran. So if we move up here, we can, so that's not going to be very hard to do. 1, 2, and so we're here. We can actually take Borodino. 1, 2, what's it going to cost to go across? We've got a stream, and then we also have, back up, I pulled. Okay, so Moran was here. So 1, 2, okay, now to cross, we've got to cross this here, but of course this can just cross right because it's a ford right there. Or probably it's a bit really like a bridge, but that's a bridge. So I guess that's just a ford there. Yeah, that's a stream. So creek, I guess, is what it's called. It costs 3. But then a trench, that's what this is. Trench. Can't cross, but can at a bridge or a ford. So that would be 1 less. So 1, 2, and then the village doesn't cost anything extra. So that's just 1. So they can actually move in here. So 1, okay, 1, 1, 2, and then 3, 4, 5. Hang on, wait a minute. Let's see, what does this one have? Well, it says 5. Movement of 5. What's this one have? It only has 4, so I guess we can't move in there. Yeah, we're going to have to just stop right there. All right, and the rest of Moran's troops. Let's see here. They're going to be on the other side of the river, but that's okay. But they can only move. They got 4 and 5, so we got light leading the bunch. Light infantry. Okay. Forest text is a +1, so it's going to cost 2 to get in there. So 2, and then 3, 4. So there, and they're still going to be within range of Moran. These guys, that's part of Gerard. Okay, so Gerard is going to take his units across. So we're going to have to turn, and that's going to cost them. Change facing. If they're in column, it's 0. Okay, so it didn't cost anything. And then that bridge, which it's going to be for them, they're not in road order. It's going to cost 3. I could put them in road order. And if I did that, it would be 2 less. So it would only be a +1. In road order, that's one of those optional rules that I said that I wanted to include. So let's see where that's at. Yeah. Okay, now it doesn't say that you can only have 1 unit in that hex. So we just have to put a road, we have to use road markers. Route. Oh, there it is, road column. Okay, so we've got these road column markers we put on them. And it costs 2 to go into formation. So that's 2. And then using the road, the bridge is only going to be +1. So, but this unit here has no leader. So all they can do is just go to road column right there. This unit can because it says the leader can actually use all of its movement. So it goes 1, 2 to change formation, and then it goes 1 to right there. So that's 3. So it's going to have to stop. One of them can go across, but if I do that, then the leaders split. So okay. Next, I've got Grouchy back here, and he's going to move his horse artillery up, but it's not moving with the leader, so it can only go 3. 1, 2, 3 goes to there, and then he's going to move up 2 right there, and then he's going to bring this cavalry unit here. 1, 2, 3. All right. So they're finished. Now we move over here. We've got, let's see, Ledru right here. And he's got, okay, so this is Ney now. We're moving Ney. And so I don't want to use those. There we go. So where's Ney? Okay. Third division. Corps. Third Corps. Is now moving. So we're moving Ledru. He's got cavalry with him. So 1. I'll tell you what, we just want to move the infantry forward. So 1, 2, 3, as far as he can go. Here, I got to flip that over. That's horse artillery, actually. So horse artillery can move half, 3. 1, 2, 3. It moves to there. Schuler moves 1, 2, 3. These guns here. This is Ney here. It's got 11. Okay. What is this one doing way over here? This is his right here, Ledru's. So can't go. We can go here. 1, 2. Got some of these mixed up. So okay, we got to flip these guys over. That's all they can do. They can just go 1, 2. This one here just goes 1, 2, or 1 right there. And it can actually go right there. I don't think he had enough points. He was just going by himself. So, okay, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4. He stops there. That's actually part of Davos. Okay. Yeah, we might as well flip this over. 1, 2. Napoleon's just going to stay here. Nay. See. 1, 2. Cavalry unit. 1, 2. Guard, guard, guard. Clapardi. He's going to move up. 1, 1, 2. Creek. I see that Creek Hex side. Creek Hex side. It's +1. Artillery gets +3. So unless they're in road march. Just artillery's always be in road march. So they can just go right on over. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And this artillery can just go right with it. Okay. Let's see, we got guard units here. And I'm just going to move to there. These are going to move to here. These guys are going to move here. Okay, now let's focus over here on this end and what they're going to do. Okay. So we have Junot's 8th Corps. Here's Junot right here. So his 8th Corps, they're going to move. So they're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, wait a minute. They had to go over this. So that's 1, 2, 3. So they just have to stop right there. And these guys will move up. So that's Murat back there. Okay, here we go. I think this is Poniatowski. No, where's he at? He's got to be there somewhere. That's not him. Okay. For cavalry, okay, vortex is +2. So this is actually infantry though. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That that artillery can't be there. He has to be. He can't be in there. I'd have to put him back here. So I'd have to flip these like so. Well, I can't put him there either. He would have to be. I can't put him with that one or with that one. He'd have to be there. I'll just set him here. He would have probably been. I should put him back here. Okay. So, what I'd say it costs for cavalry. Forest hex is +2. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right there. This guy, he couldn't have moved that far because he didn't go with a leader. Well, I was moving these guys all together. I shouldn't have moved him up and then moved him. They were moving together. So any of these units that are artillery can't be in a hex. So this one has to actually go 1 and then up that slope. Okay, we treat that like a creek hex side. That's 3. So they only have 4, so they can't go any further. They got to stop. But plus they only get half, so they'd have to stop anyways. Okay. Marat, this unit's just going to move up. These guys, so it costs them, that's 3. And then 4, 5, 6. And over here, we've got those artillery and road column. This guy's not. So 1, 2. Road column. They'd have to continue there. So he'll have to stop there. These guys are going to move up. Well, let's do this. We're going to have to give a little bit of space in case we get counterattacked for units to move back through. So, all right. So that takes care of the movement for the French. So we pull back even further. Okay, we take a look. So that was just moving. You have place entering unit step. We don't have any units coming in. We don't have any, there are no reinforcements coming. So we did the movement. Then you do the rally phase. And for a unit to rally, they have to have a leader in that hex with them. Then we have the fire combat phase. Now, the only fire combat we would be able to have for the French, but they don't go first. Who goes first is the Russians. And so now we're going to have some artillery fire. That's the only thing that could occur because no French units are adjacent to Russian units. But we had the non-phasing firing step. So let's do that. First off, we've got to look to see, okay, who has range, and also they've got to be in their fire arc. So got a little bit too close there. We're going to pull back a little bit. So we're looking here at, where's my cup? That unit. This unit here. Okay. And the target, okay, they are on a hill, so they're on a higher elevation. Let's make sure that they can be on. I don't see there is no hill on here, so you know to get upslope up on a hill, there's no movement cost, but there should be. So now we're looking at targets, and he's here, but his arc for fire. Okay, I'll just do it. He goes that hex, this hex, that hex. So it's not going to go to those two hexes that are on either side, which are considered front hexes. But for artillery, their fire, let's see if I can find it. Their fire arc, there it is. If you notice, fire arc is like that. So here we are like this. So this hex here and this hex are not going to be in the fire zone. Fire arc, okay? So it goes here and then out. But, you know, it's just going to follow that hex spine right there on out to, but it can only go 3 hexes. So we have several targets, but the woods would be able to see over this hex. Okay. This hex, I think, would be an obstacle, would be a block. But so they could fire at this hex here. Let's see, line of sight. Okay, hill, forest, or village hex in the line of fire to the target hex would be considered blocking. It doesn't really talk about, I guess, height. So I guess maybe they won't be able to fire until they get adjacent. But they're on a hill looking, they would be able to look over, but would you be able to hit? Because you would have a shadow effect there. So you'd be able to fire maybe, but there's going to be a shadow effect all the way. So I think they would be able to fire maybe here, here, or here, but not, you know, because the height of the forest would probably be the same height as the hill, the top of the trees. So you're not going to be able to see anything that's in the forest. So they're not going to be able to fire. So we have to move on to someone else that would be able to fire. So let's move down the line. And there we have our next artillery unit right here. And so now we do the same thing here. We've got Now, the only thing here is these units are they above or behind this? I don't think. Let's see if it talks about slopes. Let's see, that target is at a higher level. So they would be able to fire at, it doesn't say that those slopes block line of fire, but they probably provide a modifier since they're behind it. So let's see here, firing modifiers. No, there's no fire modifiers, just melee modifiers for heal or slope up, down. So all right, so let's take a look at the strength. And as first off, who do we want to fire at? We got to pick a target. And we'd rather fire at someone that is not protected as much. So let's fire here at this hex that's got these 2 units in it with this leader straight ahead. That's going to be, so we can take these off. So that's 1, 2. So 2 away. This unit has a 4, 2, and 1. So I can actually move in close now. This is the unit, 4, 2, 1. So at a range of 2, it's going to have a strength of 2. Now, this leader, let's see, he's got a 1. I don't know. Don't know that he's going to provide anything. Oh, the command distance. That's the command distance. Wow. I got the command distance wrong. So what is Davu's command distance? Oh, 4. Okay. He's got a 4. All right. Okay. So, and I should have rolled on some of these. Well, they're still within, they're not within their divisional commander, but they're within Davu. So, Davu has command over moving those units around. All right, so let's see here. All right, so we have a strength of 2. And there's no modifier for firing over the slope there of any kind. Heal, whatever. Okay. So I don't see number of strength factors. Let's see how this works here. I gotta back up a little bit. Okay, so there we are. Okay, so we find the fire unit and the fire factor. which is going to be 2. Then it's modified by any fire modifiers. Okay. Next, look on the combat results table on the game board to find the combat table number that equals the modified fire factor. This is the combat table to be used. Roll 1 die and cross-grid the number rolled with the number of strength factors that the fire unit currently has. Strength factors that the fire unit currently has. The number found in the table is the number of hits scored on the target unit. For example, a unit with 6 strength factors has a modified fire factor of 1. Combat table 1 is consulted and a 3 is rolled, cross-gridding the number rolled with the number of strength factors. Well, that unit has a... Oh, I got to look at the chart. So, that's part of 8th. So that unit has 10 strength factors. Okay, so we got fire strength of 2, okay, and that artillery unit has a strength of 10 factors. So we're going all the way over to here, all right, and so then we're going to roll to find out what the effects are. So I rolled a 5. So we look here at 5, lower is better. And we go across here to 5 and we find out it's just a 0, so no effect. Okay. So the whole fire procedure is completely different from pretty much any other game that I've played. The way that this is handled. And you pick the unit, so you're not really firing at the whole hex. But you're firing at a specific unit. So you pick the target. So, you could fire at the cavalry. The thing is, the placement of the units determines who you can fire at. So here, firing at this target, he'd have to hit the front target. The front, because they're in column, this unit's in front. So that would be the target he has to fire at. Okay. So that's how that's handled. We're going to continue because we moved down the line from here, and we don't have any other artillery units until we get over to here. And so we know that's who we have. So this unit here, part of the 7th. Okay, and now we know that we're firing. Basically, we're firing here, and then here, and then here, and we can go out to 3 hexes. So that would be so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 3 out here. And so this unit is we can't fire at this unit. This woods hex blocks line of sight. But this hex, this unit here and these units here, we can fire at. And they're going to fire, of course, at these units. And you fire units separately. You're not allowed to combine fire. So each unit will fire separately. So we can't have this artillery and this artillery and this artillery all adding their factors together to attack this hex. Now they were going to fire separately. So, all right, so this is the 7th foot. And 1, 2, 3, they're only going to have a strength of 1, 3 hexes away. Plus, we're going to have a modifier because of the forest, so we may not be able to fire. Okay, the forest is going to be a -1, so that puts that unit at 0. So they can't fire. It would be ineffective. So if you have a fire factor of 0, you can't fire. So then we move to this unit here, and this unit is 2 hexes away, and they have a fire strength of 3. We get closer to them. Okay. And we can see here that they have, let's move the leader back, they have a fire strength of 4, 3, and 1. So their strength is going to be 3. 1, 2, okay, so it's 3. We're going to have -1 for the forest. So what we're going to have is, let me get, where are the other dice there that have the plus or minus with them? We have so many dice. I know I've got more dice. Yeah, there they are. So we've got, there's that one. Where's the black? Where's the black one at? I know I'll have another one. Yes, I don't. Okay, we're going to use this dice. All right, so what I say, so they're going to have a +2. So their strength is 2. And then on the strength and morale record sheet, we have, that's the 7th, right? Oh, it's the AR. Okay. All right, so that's the 2nd foot. Okay, the 2nd foot, if we look here at this, we have the AR, reserved artillery. Okay, we've got the 2nd foot, has a strength of 9. So we're going to be rolling on, I'll get the other chart. Be rolling on 2 again with the 9. So we're going to be rolling out here again. And remember, the lower is better. And let's see, where is my rolling? Should have another one here somewhere. Well, if I empty this out. Okay, so here we go. Okay, we rolled a 6, so that's not too good, because a 6 on the chart is going to end up not being too good. It's going to be on here. If you look at a 6 all the way across to 9, here, it's a 0. The gray, it's a 0. So you've got to roll lower to get hits in this system. So far the Russians have failed to inflict any casualties or anything really. So now we have this unit here. It's the 1st foot, and Borodino, of course, is going to be it's going to block line of sight. But 1, 2, 3, he's going to end up being a 0. His strength is a 1, and so at 3 hexes, 1, 2, 3. So the forest is -1, so that's going to be 0. So we're going to be done there, and we don't have any French artillery. that is within range. So the French are going to have to move up their artillery, get it set, and then be able to pound the Russians. And it's going to take some time. So the French want to hesitate in the center. They don't want to advance. They just want to threaten and then really hit hard on the left, which is the Russian left, the French right. They want to hit hard over here. Let's pull back a little bit. So the next phase would be, we would have melee. First we would have offensive fire, and then we would go to melee. And when you go to melee, the attacker gets to go melee first. So we would have phasing fire. Then we have fire morale steps. This is where units that were fired on and took losses, they have to check for morale. And then you have the pursuit step. So firing units have an option to make a pursuit movement into vacated enemy hexes. Not artillery, but infantry could move into a hex they fired at, and that unit retreated or was eliminated. They can move in. Then we have the melee combat step. Now, when a unit moves in from after fire, they can't then choose a new target to melee. They have to be already adjacent. Then we have the melee steps. So, phasing player melees, then the non-phasing player melees. So this is not where you just compare the two and you have, in the melee, that you have one roll of the die to determine what happened. Each side is going to be able to roll the die to try to inflict casualties on, or cohesion hits on, the opponent. And this is different from La Bataille. La Bataille, during melee, you just compare the two, okay? They're melee strengths. You get a comparison, or like odds, okay? You get odds, and then you look on the chart, the combat chart, you roll the dice, and it gives you the results. In this game, during melee, it's just like in the fire combat. Both sides are going to be able to roll the die. Roll a die. So this is different from a lot of the other games in the melee phase. So after the melee phase, any units that are still adjacent, okay, are going to compare morale. And the unit or the hex with the lowest morale is going to be forced to retreat, a hex. So they've got to move back. So they don't stay adjacent. So what they have to do is, let's see here. Yeah, they have to make a retirement movement. But I don't know if that means that they have to do a route move. Retirement movement. I'm going to have to look up that retirement movement to find out exactly what that is, because to me, retirement movement means that's a route movement. So after that, then you have the cavalry recall step, and then we go to the Russian side, or the other player side. And of course, you're keeping up with victory points and so forth. And you can use the little, they got a time chart that is on each side, so you could keep track of your victory points over here. But to me, it's better just to keep it on a piece of paper because, you put something here, it can easily get moved. So then you don't know. You're like, well, what did I have? So just write it down. And you also have that's the other thing about having a chart here that has the caches on it. At the end of the game, you can just count them up because you're going to have them marked on here. The only thing you're not going to have marked on here will be the location, the objective hexes. Okay, something else is if you force a unit to route, you get points, victory points, every time it routes. So, plus every time a unit routes, it loses a strength point, which I think that's a good rule. A lot of games don't have that rule, and in any kind of combat, if you have units that are routing, they're not going to stay together. They're going to spread out. They're just going to take off running. And a lot of times they drop what the equipment they have and they just go. They're just trying to survive. And so you're going to lose units that way. Some of them are going to get captured. So I think that's a good rule that if you route, you lose a strength point, stack point, whatever you want to call it. You lose. And every time you route, you're losing more. So you have some games, if you attack a routed unit, say cavalry, it automatically eliminates them. Okay. In this game, well, you still got to have like a combat, I guess. You roll it for the combat. But still, in this game, you have a routed unit, and it's attacked, it's going to route again, which means it automatically loses a strength point, and it has to move its number of strength points in hexes, not affected by terrain. The only thing terrain is if they're moving into a hex that they can't normally move into, they can't move in there. And then they'd be eliminated if that's the only hex they could move into. So there's a lot of similarities, but there's some differences between the two games, La Bataille and the Great Redoubt. There's a lot of differences. Scale is the glaring difference. But there's also some of the little mechanics of the game, the rules and so forth, are different. So there's a lot to enjoy, I think, in this game. Of course, it's kind of bland with the counters, just like the version of La Bataille de la Moscow that I have. It's bland, okay? But, I grew up, I played my first war board games in the 70s. Okay, so these games this is what bland is what we had. And so, when you've played that and you played it a lot, you don't have an issue. When you've played, games that came out in, the 2000s, and now you're trying to go back and play some of these older games, you're like, whoa, man, this is horrible. Not really, it doesn't. And I've had some people say, or in videos, there's not a lot of videos about the Great Redoubt out there. I think I only found like a couple from one individual. And he had a lot of good things to say, but one thing was he found it difficult to read the counters. And yeah, I think they could have used something other than black. I think maybe white. And of course, there's some white in some of this. Some of the leaders have white. And you could have, I don't know, with the green, they could have went with a lighter green, maybe. But then it would mesh, kind of mesh with the terrain. So that's what they were up against, I guess. And the limit of the colors available. So Um, maybe a yellow, or but white would probably show up the best on these counters, these darker counters. Um, if you went with the French with a lighter color, it would mesh with the river, but you could change the river color darker. But if you change the terrain to this darker green, and change them to lighter, it would, now you're talking about what are you going to do with the forest, because the forest wouldn't be able to be seen. So they were just limited in the colors and the cost. I'm sure that's what it was the cost. But it was really, you could get these games compared to today's monetary cheap. Oh, they were cheap in price, I'm not saying in quality and so forth. This was really good for the 70s. Same thing with La Bataille for the 70s. That's a great game. And I know it's kind of bland, but that's the way the games were. You look at the SPI games. So I'm okay. I'm going to wrap this video up. So we've done the French turn. There's not really going to be much that's going to happen on the Russian turn. The Russians don't want to advance. The only thing that's going to occur is moving artillery up. Okay. We don't have any units that are routed or anything. We don't have. We're going to have the Russians firing again. They're going to be able to get a chance to fire at targets again during the fire phase. But of course, they don't want to advance to attack. They want to stay, where they're at. And all they're going to do is bring up units. For example, here on the left, we're going to have migration is going to move these units here, and they're going to get them moved up to help support this left. And this artillery back here is going to start moving up to get up here in this little gap between the flèches and the Great Redoubt. We're probably going to have Corps cavalry may move over here toward the left, and we might start moving some of this cavalry here, right here across the river. But that's what's going to happen. So I don't think I'm going to show that. I'm just going to move those units over, and in the next turn, next video, we're going to go straight to the fire phase, because there's not going to be anything, no charges, none of that's going to be happening. So the next video, and I'll explain what I did, but I'm not going to show that on the video of just me, moving units around in the rear, and maybe positioning some stuff at the front. But I'll discuss it in the next video. I'll say, okay, I did this, this, and this, and now we're at the fire phase, and we'll do the fire phase, and then we'll go right into the next turn, because there's not going to be any melees. The Russians are not moving up to attack. They want to let the French come to them and use their artillery to pound them, and their defensive positions to hold. They're not looking to attack, except maybe on the Russian right, which is over here. They want to keep these forces here. They don't want them coming across and being able to attack here. They want to put some pressure on these guys to keep them still. And so that's what's going to happen here, is these guys on the right here are going to move across the river to put pressure on Eugene. And let's see what else we got over here. I think it's mainly Eugene, and it's his corps. So maybe Grouchy, keep them over on this side. So that's what's going to happen in between the videos. But for the next video, I'll explain that, because some people will maybe not have watched the first video. So a lot of really great elements and little bits and pieces of this game that really shine. And I think that some of the things were probably borrowed from this game. And you have that. You have game designers borrow ideas from other game designers, and they put it in their game. I can show you example after example after example. You know, I can show you games that resemble La Bataille. And I mean, it's pretty blatant. And maybe they I don't know, maybe there's not, you know, copyright wise, there's, I don't know, to me, I don't know. It's like, do they say someone comes up with a unique element or so forth, and they use it, and then another game designer can just grab it and use it too. I guess it all depends on if you have it copyrighted or not. Most of these are copyrighted. So maybe it's because it was designed in a different country. You know, there's no, the copyright doesn't extend into, say, into Spain or China or somewhere, I mean, somewhere else. You're over in Europe, you know. Sound of Drums is over in Europe. So is some of these, Simtech was over in Europe. It was in Spain, I believe. So there's a lot to really digest in the mechanics of this game compared to what Larry Groves was doing with La Bataille. And so S. Craig Taylor Jr. Let's see if we got any other names here that we would recognize. No, I don't see anybody that I recognize right away from other publishing companies. So I was looking even at the playtesters. But S. Craig Taylor Jr., I don't know anything about him. But I think he's really developed or designed and developed a very interesting system that we're going to find out if it works at the scale that we're at. And so the game turn is 30 minutes. So basically we've used 15 minutes of time here. But once we get into it and we have the melees going and a lot of the maneuvering on the board, and that's one thing at this scale, you can maneuver more. Larger units. Now in the La Bataille, you have a lot of room, okay, to maneuver. So you can work around the flank. There's room to do that. Not a whole lot of room, but you do have room. So here we've got, right here is Utits. That's how they spelled it, Utits. Okay, so we have, this is 400 yards, 400 yards. So there's 800 yards here. Okay, if we go over to, let's see. I think I'll just take it off. There we go. Okay, so let's go over here to the La Bataille, and let's just see what we've got over here. I'm having to hold this. I've got some other things here. Let's see this here. I could bring this in. And let's see here. I think I can fit. Okay, that's fine. Okay. So we'll just pull up a little closer here. Okay, so this is the edge. Okay. Here's Utitsa. Okay. So we've got put these back like they were. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we've got 700. I think that's meters, though. Let's see, where's he talk about? Yeah. Okay, so 100 meters is a hex. So we've got 700. So it's about the same. We got meters, and then meters are a little bit longer than a yard. But so we've got approximately the same amount of space to maneuver on either side. So that scale wise, they've got it right, and I could count over, like, okay, so if we count over from, say, Utitsa to the fleshes, let's just find out what we got. Okay. Seems like my thing here doesn't want to. Okay, so let's just back up here a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to count over from Utitsa to the fleshes. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's 14. That's 1,400 yards, meters, 1,400 meters. And then if we go back over to, say we go back over here. Okay. I've got quite a mess here in certain areas, but okay, so now we click this here. Could probably use this a lot. It'd be a lot easier, maybe. Okay, so now what we do, okay, so here's the fleshes, and there's Utitsa. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3 is going to be 1,200, and I said 14. So really close. And of course, you've got forest between. You've got a little bit of clearing between the forest and the fleshes over there, but it's pretty much the same. And so that there is that we've got the distance is pretty much correct. And what we have around, the space around to work with for maneuvering. So in this game, there's not a lot of room to maneuver on the south end of the battle. I believe this is the south end, and the other end is the north end, right? Yeah. So there's just not that much space here for cavalry and artillery. It's going to be, should have been mainly infantry coming over here, trying to push through. Maybe there's a gap here they can push through between the two, and that could cause an issue if these units can't get in here and plug the gap. And that's what needs to happen. These units here are going to have to get up here to plug this gap. So Davu is going to have to throw everything he's got against the fleshes. But he really wants to hit it in here and not right directly into that defensive terrain there. But just go through the woods and avoid the entrenchments. So he wants to, act like he's coming here to hold their focus right here straight ahead, but then try to push in between these two forces. That's really the French plan. And since they don't have the space to maneuver around this flank here further, and see, that's something that I guess Napoleon had considered, and Davout really pressured Napoleon in trying to get, more than once, trying to get Napoleon to go for a flank maneuver. But Napoleon was concerned that the Russians might just withdraw and he wouldn't get his big battle that he hoped would cause the Tsar to abdicate or to sign a treaty. But that's not going to happen. We're going to have the battle. They're going to hold the French off, and then they're going to disappear in the night. And when Napoleon gets to Moscow, the Russians, all the Russians evacuate, and there's a fire. Somehow a fire starts. A lot of controversy about how the fire started. I'm sure the Russians started the fire to burn everything down and not give the French places to shelter or to use any supplies that might have been left behind to feed the army. And Napoleon always lived off the land. He didn't have a supply train with goodies, with food and so forth for his army. They always relied on foraging. And, it's kind of hard to forage in the winter. So Napoleon picked the wrong time of the year to start a campaign against the Russians. And of course, the Russians used the Fabian tactic of withdrawing. And there's a lot of discussion on whether or not that was the Russians' plan originally, or if that was just caused by, the French attacking so swiftly, and the Russians just couldn't get their forces organized. I think if you look at the Russian side of things, you see through writings, documentation that they did have that Fabian plan. That was something that they planned for, in wearing the French down just by escaping further and further into the homeland. So you're going to have the same thing happen in World War II. In Operation Barbarossa, Hitler attacks Russia after they had signed a peace treaty, a like a non-aggressive alliance or treaty. And Operation Barbarossa, the Germans attacked, and they attacked at the wrong time of year, and they were not prepared for the winter, the severe winter of Russia. And so a lot of equipment froze up. Men died from the elements. They weren't properly clothed because the campaign lasted longer than Hitler expected, just like Napoleon. He thought he could get a quick battle and it'd be over. And it didn't happen. One thing is because, Russia's so vast, they can escape further and further. While some of these other countries, they didn't have that. They didn't have that option. Their territory wasn't so vast. They could only retreat so far, and then they're going to be backing into someone else's territory. So, but you have two leaders, Hitler and Napoleon, okay, they tried to do basically the same thing, conquer Russia, defeat Russia, and they did it at the wrong time of year, and the Russians basically did the same tactic. They just retreated back into the territory until they got to a place that they felt was going to be easy to defend, and that the enemy would have to lose a lot of casualties to be able to get the victory, to defeat them. So we have this big battle here where you're going to have, a large amount of casualties. And Napoleon is not able to defeat the Russians. It's really a stalemate. You could say the Russians won because they held the French off. The Great Redoubt has changed his hands several times during the battle. But a flanking maneuver would have been able to cut off the retreat of the Russian army. So Davout was Napoleon's greatest tactician, of his marshals. He was the number one marshal. And all the other marshals were very jealous of Davout. Davout also married into Napoleon's family. So there's that connection. But if you look at Davout's record, he could act alone. And he had victory after victory after victory. While some of these other marshals, when they acted alone, they couldn't manipulate the battle into their advantage. So they weren't able to copy Napoleon's tactics a lot of times. It was all just straight ahead attack straight ahead, using their columns to try to just push through. And, in Europe, it would work. But against the British in Wellington, with their two-man line, they had a two-row line instead of a three. So they had more muskets firing than a French line. But the French mainly came in column. And so, when you're in column, you're talking about 6 or 8 deep. And say you miss the front guy, you're probably going to hit either the second, third, fourth, whatever. You're going to hit somebody. So when you just level your muskets at the right angle, it's going to be devastating. And that happened time after time after time down in the peninsula. And I don't know. I favor the peninsula campaign, or a war part of the war, so much more than the European. Even though, my favorite marshal is Davout, and he really doesn't have much to do down in the peninsula. So, but I'm kind of like always rooting for the underdog. And the British, Spanish, and Portuguese, they were the underdogs. And something that the Spanish did that other Europeans did not was fight back. They did not accept Napoleon. Well, it was a lot of it, excuse me, was a religious issue. Napoleon was basically going to disband their Catholic faith. And so that really set them off. Plus the fact that Napoleon kidnapped their king and queen and their court. And these people were just ordinary people. They were not trained soldiers. And they rebelled. That's where you get the guerrilla warfare. The Spaniards, they were brutal. But the French were brutal first. Raping, stealing their crops and and animals, raping their daughters and their wives and mothers, and it was not a civilized campaign. And so, I can admire Napoleon, but at the same time, you know, I'm usually on the side of his opponents. Blucher. Blucher is my favorite commander of the Napoleonic era. You really need to read a biography over Blucher. It's really amazing to see the ups and downs of his career, and how he ends up really being the one that defeated Napoleon, because without Blucher and the Prussians showing up when they did, Wellington would have had to retire. He was not going to defeat Napoleon on his own. They needed those Prussians showing up on the flank there to, was it Placenau or Placenau? So you need to really check Blucher out. I have a good biography over him. I'll have to pull it out if I can find it. But there's commanders on both sides that I admire, but I tend to really go with the underdog a lot, and so I don't usually, when I'm playing a game with the French against the Russians, then I'm not really pulling for the Russians. But at times it depends on who's with them. When Blucher's with them, then I'm pulling for the Allies. And other times it depends on who the leaders are. And like I want to see Davout be really successful here, but at the same time I want to see the Russians hold off, and try to see historically whether or not we can get something similar. And I'm going to be attacking a little bit different here, in the fact that I'm holding the French back in the center, and I want to really try to put a lot of pressure on the Russian left, and see if they can push through there and maybe collapse the whole line and cause the Russians to try to retreat and have a really major victory here. While at the same time, on the Russian side, I'm trying to plug gaps and move units so that if something does happen, then, I can move some units over to stop the French. And that may mean moving some of these units that are in the center over to the left, and the units that are over here on the right, sliding them over toward the center. This river here is a big obstacle. And if you can block where there's fords or bridges across that river, the Kalatasha, then, you can really hold off any attack that might come from the French left. And they don't really have all of their strength. It's easy to see. All of their strength is center and left. Okay, French left. French right, Russian left. So center and right for the French. The left doesn't have that much there compared to the rest. You can easily look at this, what's here, and then what's over here. We got a corps over here with maybe a couple of divisions of Davouts, and we've got a small cavalry really just like a regiment back there. And that's it. So, what else we got there? That's 4th. That's Eugene. So there's really, just Eugene's Corps over there, basically. Strengthened a little bit with, a couple of divisions. But there we are. So, all right. So I'll get off here and get this onto YouTube, and then I'll move units. And then on the next video, like I said, we'll pick up with the fire, which is just going to be from the Russians. There's no artillery set up for the French right now. So you can see that you're going to have an opportunity to fire. Let's see. Well, if melee, you'd have a total of 4 opportunities. A unit would have 4 opportunities if they were in melee. But artillery will have every turn. They're going to have two opportunities to fire. No, yeah, during their turn and then during the opponent's turn. So that's twice. So it's important to get that artillery set up and in a position where it can find a target. So the French have really got to hurry up and get their artillery set up so that they can start pounding and weakening the flèches and around the Great Redoubt, so that when they do decide to move into melee, the units are weaker. So that's the whole objective for the French. So check it out, and we'll be back in another video.